Welcome to the very first live action episode of Project LS Free. Let's take the car cover off and take a look. All right, now that you know the history of Project LS Free and it's cleaned up a little bit, let's take a look. Let's take a look inside. As you can see, most of the interior is at the upholstery shop. The dashboard is out. You can see the airbox back here, the body control module, and the seats are still in it. Shifter's still in it, parking brake, back seats are still in there. And a whole bunch of pieces of the car are in the back seat. My goal is to empty out the entire interior. Since the dashboard is out, I want to take advantage of this opportunity to put down some sound deadening. Last time I drove it, there was a lot of heat coming through the center tunnel. That may be partially due to the break-in tune that the engine is running, but I want to isolate the interior if I can from some of that heat, being that the T-tops are glass, the windshield is pretty angled forward, and there's a huge hatchback of glass back here. This thing is like a greenhouse in the summer, and it gets really hot even without the exhaust from underneath. So mainly I want to put the sound deadening there for the heat. However, a little bit of insulation from pebbles and things underneath the car would be nice. Get some quieter interior. Let's start with emptying out the trunk. You can see back here some pieces. I have my spare steering wheel, which I'll probably sell after this. I'm using it temporarily to drive around once the car is back together while I work on my custom steering wheel. HVAC controls, gauges, passenger side airbag. These are the inner door sills. That's the dead pedal right there, missing the cover from it. Sunshades for the T-tops. 12-disc CD changer, which is permanently affixed back here. Some chopping bags that look like they've seen better days. This is a under dash paneling, stuff you don't see, and some pieces of fasteners and speaker mounts I see down there. So I'll empty all this stuff out before we get started on removing the carpet. You can see the panel that would be here and here on the left and right side, which would house the speakers. Those are at the upholstery shop. We have finished, however, the trim paneling for the hatch. This is finished in black Alcantara. You can see up here. And I actually put some lighting for the hatch. When the thing is open, it's much easier to see. The factory lighting is just the dome light back there, and it casts a big shadow over the deep well in the back of the T-top storage area. So these lights work much better for unloading at night. All right, hatch area is completely emptied out. We just have this carpet that goes up here, but there's already a sound deadening mat. I don't know if I'm going to take out the lower, what do they call this, mouse fur lining here. It's kind of a spun nylon molded into shape. I could put some sound deadening on the very bottom of this. This box probably makes a nice little echo chamber when you're driving down the road. I could put some back here in the former spare tire well. This T-top space is actually so deep you can fit a full-size PC tower upright inside of here while driving around, which I used to do. Now let's empty out the back seat. These are the A-pillars, also covered in Alcantara. Here's the dead pedal. Got all the floor mats. Next, we have to remove the seatbelt anchors. This goes to the driver's side floor. I'm gonna remove this cover. There we go. And the inside, we have a Torx. This is a T50 fitting. These are my Cypher bucket seats that I installed in the car some years back. These style of seats from other brands have become kind of popular in the aftermarket these days because they're so affordable. But this is one of the first ones to come over to the US. I actually went to a Cypher showroom to sit in them to see if they fit me well and will work for the car. But essentially, the suspension is capable enough that it pulls pretty high G-forces, and the stock seats were not holding me in place. I was putting a lot of stress on the steering column by pulling on the wheel to keep myself in place. So I got these things because they have much more hefty and sturdy side bolsters. But they're actually comfortable enough that you can go for long stints in them. They're a little bit taller than the factory seats, and when you flip them forward to get into the back seat or access the back seat area, they do swing up and hit the sun visors up here, so you have to be careful to flip the sun visor forward first, but otherwise they're a pretty good fit for the car. I installed some standoffs on the front to tip them back at a little steeper angle, but now we have to remove them to get to the carpet underneath, so let's go ahead and start taking that out. You can see the standoffs here underneath. They lift the front of the seat up a little bit higher. I'm using Cypher seats on top of planted brackets. The metal bracket underneath is made by Planted. The standoffs, which look like they're clear of the carpet, so I might be able to leave those in. You have to take the seatbelt latches out from the floor. Should be a similar Torx bolt, I believe. This is my traction control switch, some USB connectors, and also voltage readout, which is off because the battery is disconnected. And let's go do the other side. The inboard seatbelt mounts I expect should be fairly similar to the outboard ones. There we go. This is our seatbelt warning chime. It detects that the seatbelt's plugged in. Looks a little melty. Home free. I'm going to do the other side. So it looks like this area already has some sound deadening. It's kind of sticky. This area is not so much, but the bolt has some sticky sound deadening tar stuff on it. Same deal here, it's kind of sticky. Interestingly, this bolt goes all the way through to the underside of the car. In all the time I've owned this car, I've never removed the rear seats. I'm interested to see how easy or difficult this might be. That was easy. Now that I think about it, I may have cleaned this space up when I first bought the car. I think I remember finding some goodies back here. This is August 12th, 1997. Passenger side back seat. More T50 bolts. This is the passenger side rear seat where I just removed the lower cushion. This is the seat belt buckle. Rear seat bottoms are now both removed, and we have to get the seat back out. This is an interesting combination of buckets on the bottom and bench on the backs, so it's just one piece here. The seat belts can stay in the car for the rear seat. However, these brackets at the top shoulder area need to come out, so they'll stay attached to the seat belts just hanging in the car, but these two Torx bolts have to get removed. These look smaller than the T50s, so let's see what size they are. So it would appear these are T30 bolts. Lefty tighty is no good. Wow, these are long. That's got to be 1.5 inches long bolt covered in blue Loctite. At least it's not rusted. There we go. That's free of the wrench. The last bit left to remove would be the back seat back. And you can see it has these levers on the side here that release. If you pull both of them simultaneously, the seat folds flat. You have this big load floor in the back. And they all hinge on this little point right here. So we gotta remove this nut off the bottom of the attachment there, and then I should be able to take this out. That did it. Time to take the last piece of the seat out. Look, ma, no seats. Time for some vacuuming. Okay, the interior is cleaned out. Now time to start looking at how to get the carpet removed. Do we start from the back and work forward? Money. Carpet is out. Money. And more money. Does this count as the first time my YouTube channel is turning a profit? Yeah, got some rust there. We may have to do something about that. We definitely have to do something about this. So this is the hole I cut in the floor, covered with some sound deadening material. The reason I cut this hole at the back of the center tunnel here is because the torque arm runs along the center tunnel, and it's an aftermarket torque arm that's stronger but also bigger. And with a lowered car, it needs a kind of ovoid hole there. So rather than literally sticking a patch over it, I should get a piece of round tubing, some round stock, cut it to clear the torque arm underneath, and match the contours of the floor here, grind away some paint so that we have some nice metal exposure, and have somebody weld it in for me since I don't have a welder. And in the meantime, you can look at putting in some sound deadening in here, some insulation, especially areas like this in the center tunnel. That'll help keep the heat out. It looks like this area already has some mat over it. I don't know if I'll run double layers. I could take this out and run some sound deadening underneath, and then on top of that still put this piece in. Here's that sticky stuff we saw before. I guess that's as much sound deadening as it is a weather proofing to keep the interior of the car watertight, since those bolts, as I showed you, go through the floor. And it looks like you have some electrolysis taking place here with these pennies that have been dropped underneath the floor. Interesting that it looks like there's some bending as well on the floor here. That's just the loose dash vibrating since there's nothing holding it in. I did, however, put sound deadening already all around these 8-inch Rockford Fosgate subs I mounted in the sail panels to cut down on vibration from the very open space behind the speaker there. They still sound really good. There's a mat here on the rear deck, again, to serve as a kind of sound deadening. And there are these little insulation blocks that go underneath the floor, and underneath them are the upper shock mounts for the rear axle. Since I have Coney adjustable shocks, this is where you would adjust them for the back. And I've decided if I want to put sound deadening up on the roof up here. There's not a lot of clearance and it's weight that's up high, so I may just leave the sound deadening off. Total amount comes to $2.17. Time to remove the T-top storage areas in the hatch. And the last bit we have to remove is this 12-disc CD changer. And we can get this flocking out of the hatch area. What do we have here? It's not in my handwriting for sure. We have some more T30 Torx bolts holding this thing down. More bolts that go completely through the floor. Seems there's some more unused space back here. There's a support piece I never had with the car. It went missing before I acquired it. So I've always filled it with rags, which can be useful in an emergency. The spare tire is sitting in front of the car, but they don't make that size of spare tire anymore. It goes vertically in this well here behind the passenger side rear tire. But it's a very small donut spare. Like I said, the size isn't made anymore, but even if they did make the size, that wheel doesn't fit over the front brakes that I put on it. The 6-piston brakes are too big, so the flat would have to be on the rear wheels. And I couldn't even switch them because the rear wheels are wider than the fronts, even if I somehow had 2 jacks or something to support the car. So it looks like they actually put some nice sound deadening material down here and here, but I can always add to it to make this area a little less echoey. And I suppose because the spare tire might be, you might get a flat in the rain, it might be wet, they put a little hole down there which I've covered with masking tape, but I'm going to go ahead and cover that with sound deadening material. The whole car is now stripped out. We do some vacuuming and then we do sound deadening. Interior is gutted and cleaned. All ready for sound deadening to go in. Cleared some space on the center tunnel over here. Put some sound deadening there. Take the vapor barrier off that door. Just like on the driver's side. Put some sound deadening inside the door. Also have to take out the speaker to reach inside the door panel. One of the longest conventionally opening doors on any production car. I believe they're 57 inches long. I think before I deal with the sound deadening, I'm going to take a look at the rear footwells. You can see there's a little bit of rust in here. And the jacking points on this car are not great, so when you brace the rear end of the car, if you don't put the jack stands underneath the axle, you wind up getting some flex out of the floor here. Some of it just is unavoidable. Some of it is poor jack placement on my part. But there's a little bit of rust here and flaking paint. I think what I'm going to do is wire wheel this stuff off and then coat it with some poor rust protectant. And before I do that, I'm going to try and beat the floor flat. I have a small sledgehammer I can use for that. This side is a lot worse because this is where water pooled during the T-tops leaking, which is a common issue with all T-top vehicles. But I don't know if wire wheeling this off is going to be sufficient or if I'm going to have to patch panel the rusted hole in the floor. But we definitely had an oopsie here with the jack stand. Don't remember exactly what happened, but I do remember that's my fault. I really want to put subframe connectors in here, not only to add some rigidity to join the front and rear ends of the car, but to add some really nice jacking points underneath it. And this will never be an issue again. The front end looks pretty good. The front of the interior floor pan and all the back area back here is pretty good as well. At one point the rear hatch was also leaking. If you park on a very steep hill, the water is supposed to drain along these channels here, and then it drains down into these little plastic funnels that kind of have a drain hole at the back of them, or it goes underneath it and drains. But if you're on a steep enough hill, the water would go forwards, go over the lip here, and then drain into the bottom of this T-top storage well. And fortunately, it looks like we've managed to avoid any rust in the back area here. Okay, let's see how bad the rust is on this side. Not too bad. Looks a little more porous than I would have hoped, but I think we can seal that up. And I gotta check on this though. Find out if that's just rust from somewhere else or if that's underneath the paint. I'm gonna try hitting it with some battery cleaner. Hopefully that'll just remove anything that's in here. Looks like it's mostly wiping off. I think it's on top of the paint, not underneath it. Let that soak for a little bit. I think that was pretty successful. Let's wipe off the battery terminal cleaner now that it's done its job. Yeah, this was the area I was worried about right here. There was a ring of rust, but I think that was more a water spot that just happened to have rust in it. The paint looks perfectly intact. It's mostly good. There's a little spot right here on the seat mount brace. This weld maybe has a little bit of rust underneath it, but I can't reach that without removing the brace, so it's going to stay. This is the side I'm really worried about, the passenger side here. The floor may be too far gone to salvage that, in which case it's going to be time for a patch panel. So let's try and wire wheel it and see how far it goes through the floor. It's interesting. This appears to be 2 layers of metal, and it only went through the top layer, but the bottom layer is still intact. How I can remove the rust from in between them is going to be an interesting exercise for sure. Alright, kind of looks like a hole blown through the floor now, but at least I can reach more of it. This isn't just for using a wire wheel. The reason I'm opening it up like this is so I can actually get some rust inhibitor down in there. I know I have some, I just gotta go find it in the garage. Here's what it looks like now. As I said, it looks like something exploded inside that hole with the edges of the metal bent out like that. But I was able to get most of the rust with the wire wheels and the Dremel bit. Try and get some rust converter in here. Gotta clean up a little bit. And I want to see about getting the floor flattened in this area. But it looks like I'm going to get away without having to use a patch panel, even though the metal looks pretty porous right in the middle here. I think we're okay. I'm going to grab a vacuum. Okay, let's try the same trick with the battery terminal cleaner and see if any of these rust spots are just on the surface. From the color of the liquid, it looks like it's picking up a lot of the rust, which is good. Just kind of massaging it into the worst areas here, but I think like the other side, it's picked up most of the surface rust. And anything that's left exposed here, we're going to cover it later with a nice sealing coat of paint. Alright, I'm going to use some of this Rust-X crud cutter to convert what's left of the rust that I can't reach. What it does on a chemical level, it converts the iron oxide, which we call rust, and it's chemically changed into iron phosphate, which is kind of a black, inert version of the metal that won't continue to rust, but you still have to paint over that. So the reason I'm doing this is because I can't get to all the rust inside of this opening here. So I'm gonna just put it inside. I might use some more on top later, but first I wanna get that stuff converted and flatten out the floor. And then after that, I will deal with painting and sealing up anything else that might be rusted. Alright, this stuff needs to sit overnight, so we're going to leave it. But you can see, just in the time you've been watching, this small area here that was filled with rust before. Even though I wire wheeled most of it out, the remnants have started to turn black as opposed to some of the other areas around it that have bare metal. These haven't changed color, but this will turn mostly black, and hopefully the areas around it that I haven't been able to reach will also be protected. Now we need to bend the floor flat. There's a ridge right here across this section. This area is largely unaffected. This looks pretty good. This side isn't nearly as bad as the other, but I think this area is all a little higher than it should be. Maybe this a little bit too. Looks like there's more rust in here than I initially expected. I might be putting some rust converter in here as well. So as it turns out, we had a lot more rust inside this hole, so I'm going to open it up a little bit and try and get some rust converter on the driver's side as well. Yeah, it's a little worse than I originally thought. You can see a bit of rust inside there, but not as bad as the other side. The other side actually goes all the way through. There's a couple of pinholes. But we'll get that rust out of there and treat this side just like the other. Most of the rust is out of there. Now it's time for some rust converter. Alright, rust converter is in. Let it do its thing overnight, just like the other side. Let's see if we can maybe bend some of the metal while we're waiting for that to take place. Let's take a look at the passenger side here. You can see there's a pretty bad crease in the floor. So the jack stands go back here, but when you're lifting it up, you have to put the jack somewhere, and that's not where the jack stands are going to go. So you usually wind up lifting it up around this area, and if you lift it here too far inboard, you get this. I think that's what happened. Ultimately bending the floor and leaving me with this problem to fix. I've tried to bend it flat before, but when I did that, all the seats were in the car, the carpet was in the car, so it was very difficult to really do much to repair this. I think I maybe pulled the carpet back from the door sill here just to get a little clearance, but I have a much better shot at it now, so hopefully we can do a better job of getting rid of this problem here. The other side came out pretty good. It looks very level now, and once the carpet and sound deadening and everything are on top of that, you're not going to see any of the minor imperfections from the hammer blows. You may have noticed when I was hammering on it before there are some circular points here where the two layers of metal are welded together. These are spot welds that the assembly line uses to put everything together, and because these areas are reinforced with two layers of metal bonded together, they're the hardest to bend. So somewhere over here where it's a single layer, if I hit it with the hammer here, it'll move really quickly, so I have to be very careful not to hit it too hard or too many times. But in these areas, you witnessed me beating pretty relentlessly on it just to get the desired effect. So hopefully we can move this down. Now from underneath. Okay, I think that's going to do it for getting all the dents out of the floor on the passenger side. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. You're not going to see any of this stuff through all the layers. There's going to be sound deadening on top of this. There's going to be carpet on top of that, and then floor mats on top of that. Previously, you could see a little angle in the floor mats because the floor wasn't level, so that was my primary goal when pounding out all the dents in the floor. Which I've succeeded on. The floor is pretty flat here, and then it goes up at a consistent angle across the edge here, which was not the case before. There's a little lip at this point because there are multiple layers of metal underneath this, from underneath, and this is a much more rigid area. This area here is much softer, and I was able to pound out the dents, but when you get very close to the edge of the multiple layers of metal here, there's just no way to get the implement in from underneath to pound it back upwards again. But as I said, it's close enough. The rust converter has done its job. You can see the iron oxide has turned to iron phosphate here. That's the black stuff. And we're ready to coat it with our Por 15. I'm going to flare the edges of this metal back up temporarily when I apply the Por 15, just so that it gets all the way in as deep as possible between the layers of metal. And then I will bend it back down as flat as I can possibly make it before covering it with sound deadening material. And that should protect it from any future potential rust, assuming that the floor doesn't get bent enough to cause a tear or bend that would tear the coating off. The driver's side is also ready for the Por 15. It's already flared up and ready to go. After a bit of a shipping delay, the Por 15 is finally here. As you saw earlier in the video, I opened up the rust spots in the floor. I treated them with a rust conversion formula that changes it from iron oxide into iron phosphate. That's the black buildup you see on the surface now. And I've cleaned them and prepped them for the POR 15 application. It does say you're supposed to transfer this stuff into a separate container to avoid contaminating the original, but I'm just going to open it and apply a very small amount. But I do have to mix it. It says don't shake it, but you do have to mix. It looks pretty well mixed to me. I don't see any clumps in here. But I'm gonna go ahead and scrape the sides and then apply it. It looks like our application of POR 15 was a success. It's only a single coat, but we have actually pretty good coverage. I'm not sure what all the little dots are from. It looked like it had some bubbles in it when I was applying it, but it might be that there were some impurity on the surface, some dust and pollen and things like that since we're outside. I don't really care since this is going to be under the carpet. All I care about is the metal is protected from further rust or future rust if the T-tops leak again. But the next step is this little crater that I've created on the floor needs to get folded flat so that we can put another coat of the POR 15 over the top of it, and then eventually put the sound deadening material over that and the carpet on top of that. Second coat of the POR 15, and then we'll never even know it was there. You can see removed a little bit of the POR 15 here, but stuff is pretty hardy. The rest of it is fine. It's just where I folded the metal back over, where some of it had curled at the edge. And here's the driver's side. Now that I've pounded flat the dent, I'm going to go ahead and do a second application of POR 15, as you can see. I'm going to try this foam applicator brush. As you can see, the regular bristled brush left behind some bristles. Coat number 2 complete. Might go back and touch up just the area around where the rust occurred, because hitting it with the hammer removed the first coat, so there's really only one really thick coat there. But the rest of it has 2 coats and looks pretty good. And the passenger side as well.